The Battle of Gaugamela was no doubt a decisive battle that changed the history of the world, because its triumph opened the door of known world on Macedonian army. And Alexander became the king of kings after this battle, as he went on defeating the remaining Persian army and became the king of known world Persia at that time. Let's revisit this epic battle. But before we dig deeper, let me ask you this. What do you think are the qualities that make an outstanding general? Intelligence, or creativity, or maybe daring? Nope, calculation, I guess. And what about charisma and luck? Let me know in the comments section what you guys think is the best quality, only one quality. Okay, back to the topic. The key figure at Gaugamela possessed all of these, and he is often regarded as one of the greatest generals of all time. He conquered most of the known world. He was victorious in 4 horrific and furious battles, conducted several successful sieges, and held together a multinational army during an epic march across much of Europe and Asia. Is none other than Alexander, which more commonly known as Alexander the Great. And you have probably heard his name before, right? But do you know the exact reason that led to Battle of Gaugamela? The Battle of Gaugamela, which took place in 331 BCE, was a significant conflict between Alexander the Great of Macedon and Darius III of Persia. The exact reason for the battle can be traced back to the ongoing power struggle and territorial disputes between the Greek and Persian empires. But from a closer look, we can assume that the sole reason behind it was power. And the famous quote of Ragnar popped into my mind, where he says, "Power is dangerous. It corrupts the best and attracts the worst. Power is only given to those who are prepared to lower themselves to pick it up." And Ragnar was right. Power leads to destruction. And that's exactly what happened in Gaugamela battle. The Battle of Gaugamela, perhaps Alexander's greatest victory, demonstrates that one of the keys to his success as a general was his unusual combination of cautious preparation before battle and quick-thinking boldness once engaged. The golden age of the Greeks had ended with the long, destructive Peloponnesian War, in which the Greeks again turned against one another. Although Sparta was the nominal victor, all participants were exhausted and impoverished by the struggle. Over the next half-century, a new power arose to the north, Macedonia, a minor, disunited state, weakly controlled by a hereditary king. Between 359 BC, when Philip II came to the throne, and 339 BC, he transformed Macedonia into a first-rate power. Most notably, he reconstructed the army, which he then used to conquer his neighbors and create a Macedonian empire. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BC, Alexander succeeded to the throne at the age of 20. The young king quickly secured his position, getting the army to swear an oath of loyalty to him personally, killing any who might be potential rivals, and suppressing several revolts. Now here comes the arch-rivals. At the time of his death, Philip had been planning an expedition against Persia's westernmost regions, ostensibly in revenge for Persia's invasions of Greece more than 100 years earlier. Alexander now took up this plan, and in the spring of 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia at the head of a Macedonian Greek army of approximately 45,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry. While on the other hand, the Persian Empire at the time of Alexander unquestionably remained the superpower of the region. The current king of kings was Darius III, who had come to the throne in 336 BC. The ancient sources offer conflicting portraits of Darius, with most depicting him as weak and indecisive. However, in first year of his reign, he crushed a rebellion in Egypt. These were the arch-rivals, but you'll be surprised to know about strange facts about the Macedonian army and its technology. In revamping the Macedonian army, Philip made a number of innovations to the successful model of the Greek hoplite phalanx. He equipped the Macedonian phalanx with an extra-long spear called a sarissa, rather than the shorter spear of the hoplite. He lightened the soldier's armor, particularly reducing the size and weight of the shield. Maintaining order and wielding these weapons required considerable drilling and discipline. Thus, Philip made his army a permanent, professional one. He also included contingents of other types. He added archers and slingers to harass the enemy from a distance. There were swift, agile, lightly armed troops to act as skirmishers. There were sizable cavalry units, some of which were light cavalry used as scouts, while others were heavy cavalry who could break an enemy line. See how amazing and great was the Macedonian army. But don't take lightly the army of Persia. Let's discuss. The Persian army was much the same as that which the Greeks had faced at Plataea. Its elite infantry were the 10,000 immortals. The strength of the Persian army was its numerous and well-trained cavalry, and a favored weapon among both infantry and horsemen was the bow, although a wide array of swords, spears, and axes were also employed. Imagine if you were to fight them, and you were in the middle of fight. How would you feel? Nervous? Frightened? So was I. Next comes battle, and the most horrible and ferocious fight part, where thousands were killed. Some of them were slaughtered, some of them lost and got prisoned, while some of them were victorious. And some of them won, but they lost their body parts and returned wounded. Okay, enough talk, let's dive into the battle part. Darius's most obvious advantage was numerical, and he used the interval to gather a vast army from every corner of his empire. Darius then chose his battlefield carefully, a large, flat, featureless expanse along the Tigris River near Gaugamela, where the Persian numerical superiority could be used to full effect. See, now strategies were employed because the smarter you are, the powerful you'll be. Finally, Darius created a special weapon of 200 chariots with blades attached to their wheels. These would be launched against the Macedonian phalanx. The blades would literally carve openings in the formations, into which the cavalry could pour. Alexander's advisors, frightened by the size of the Persian army, urged him to attack at night to mask their inferior numbers. Refusing this advice, Alexander went to bed. On the other hand, Darius, fearing just such an assault, kept his army standing ready for battle all night. By morning, Alexander had already scored an advantage. His troops were well rested in contrast to the sleepless Persians. Alexander's most pressing problem was the lack of a geographic anchor to prevent encirclement. His solution was to stagger his forces at an angle on the left and right sides of the phalanx so that they could face an enemy encircling movement head-on. At a distance behind the main phalanx, he positioned a second line made up of allies and mercenaries. His forces were arranged so that if Persians did outflank them and surround his army, it could form a hollow rectangle with men facing outward in all directions. As the battle began, Alexander led his cavalry to the right. Darius ordered his cavalry to mirror Alexander's movements, with the result that the lines were stretched out and the center of gravity began to shift away from the ground that Darius had so carefully prepared. Darius therefore ordered his scythed chariots to charge, but the Macedonian skirmishers and javeliners picked off the charioteers. When the remainder reached the phalanx, the Macedonians opened lanes for the chariots to pass harmlessly. As they slowed to turn, lightly armed troops killed the rest of the charioteers. Determined to contain Alexander's sweep, Darius dispatched more Persian cavalry to block him, and an intense cavalry battle ensued. Meanwhile, on the left, the Macedonian phalanx was hard-pressed and in danger of losing contact with Alexander and the Macedonian right. A gap developed in the Macedonian line, into which a group of Persian cavalry poured. As they wheeled to the right and struck the main phalanx from behind, they might well have broken the phalanx and won the battle. But the Persian cavalry began looting the Macedonian baggage train. Thus, elements of the second line of the Macedonian phalanx had time to confront and contain them. Meanwhile, Alexander had decided to take advantage of the parallel stretching of the Persian lines, and he now led a bold charge, cutting from right flank where Darius stood in his chariot. The companion cavalry, formed into a wedge with Alexander himself at its head, crashed into the Persian ranks. Darius apparently took fright and just as he had at the earlier Battle of Issues turned his chariot and fled from the field, abandoning his army. Upon his desertion, Persians in that section lost heart, and after some tough fighting, Alexander's army routed them. Alexander had won the battle, and with it, the Persian Empire, although Darius escaped and would manage to evade capture for another year or so, until mortally wounded by his own men. From the moment he fled from Gaugamela, he had effectively forfeited his throne. Alexander became the king of kings of Persia. That was it, a heroic end to the battle, and Alexander emerged as the most powerful king of his time.